All right. I believe we're about ready to get this party started. Everybody all right? Hey, that's pretty good for 10 in the morning. Come on. Now this side did great. This side, I don't know if this side's had that coffee yet. One more time. This is Music City. This is AMERICANAFEST. Everybody all right? I love it. I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Be Your Own CEO, empowering songwriters in the business side of the music industry. My name is Shannon Sanders, and I'm a songwriter, producer, and I'm also executive director, creative at BMI Nashville, and I'm excited to be able to moderate this fantastic panel, not only as a moderator, but just to get information. We have an exciting conversation ahead of us, and I would like for our panelists to introduce themselves.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for being here. My name is Jamie Dominguez, and I am the National Director of Industry Relations at the Mechanical Licensing Collective, otherwise known as the MLC. I'm pretty new to the MLC, actually just started about 5 months ago, but my history goes way back in the songwriting community. I was at CSAC for 19 years doing creative, very similar to what Shannon does at BMI, and at the MLC, it's just continuing the work of really advocating for the songwriter. For those of you who aren't familiar with the MLC, we are a nonprofit, and what we do is we collect your streaming mechanical royalties from all of the digital service providers like Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, Amazon Music. So if you're a songwriter, how many songwriters do we have in the room? Okay, that's a lot of that's the whole room, basically. So all of you are entitled to receive streaming mechanical royalties. If you have a publisher or an administrator, they will collect on your behalf. If not, then you have to register directly with the MLC. Again, we're a nonprofit. We were designated by the U.S. Copyright Office to collect these royalties and distribute them to you at no cost. That means the DSPs actually pay all of our operating costs, so we can pay you 100% of your royalties. And since our first distribution in 2021, we've distributed over $2 billion. So it works. So register, get that money.
Get that money. Get that money.
Good morning, my name is Kent Marcus. I'm a partner at Marcus & Colvin, which is a full-service entertainment law firm. So we represent artists and songwriters and publishers and labels and everything that comes along with that. We've been here in Nashville. I've been here in Nashville since for a long time, since end of '97, just practicing entertainment law, working at some labels before that. And it's a pleasure to be here speaking with these esteemed colleagues.
And my name is Robert Knotts. I am the Vice President of Distribution overseeing our label services team at 30 Tigers, which is a label services and distribution company allowing artists to retain ownership of and creative control of their master recorded work. And so effectively we help artists, managers, and artist teams provide them a service of a full label team and a label infrastructure without the exchange of ownership or copyright control. So with that comes a lot of responsibility on the songwriter and artist team, and we help them sort of navigate setting that shop up.
Awesome. Thank you all. So as you see, we have a great panel. We're going to have a great conversation. And so seeing how many of you all raised your hands, and the fact that you're here and here at 10 in the morning means you're serious. So let's have a real conversation. Being a CEO in the creative space means taking charge of both your art and your business. It's about balancing the passion for creating with the responsibility of managing your career strategically. You're not just a creator, you're also the leader who drives the vision, makes the key decisions, and ensures the business side of your work supplies and amplifies your creativity. It's about building a sustainable, long-term path where your creative freedom and business success go hand in hand, and being empowered to own every aspect of your journey. All right, today we'll break down key responsibilities that you would manage as a CEO. All right, creative visionary. As CEO, the songwriter shapes the artistic direction of their music, ensuring that their work aligns with their unique voice and long-term creative goals. They would manage collaborations and maintain control over the creative process. All that being said, starts with you. And that's what I want to talk about first, guys, how it starts with you. Even before we talk about building out a team, let's talk about how important it is for you to know who you are before somebody tells you who you are. How important is it to know who you are?
I was gonna jump in on that, and maybe to intentionally throw a little wrench in that, though. It kind of goes along with what you were saying. All this is really important, and I get calls all the time from writers that are starting out, and they talk about, I need to set up my business, and I need to set up, whether it's a corporation or an LLC, and then kind of going to what you're saying, who are you? What's your vision? My question is, well, have you written a song, right? Or even then, okay, have you written a good song? Or have you written a song that's been exploited? So I just let's be careful that we're not, this is gonna sound a little silly, but right, it's the music business, right? Music comes first. So be an artist, right? Don't let the business get in the way of being an artist. We can spend all the time, you can pay me money to set up an LLC and to go through all these, all the paperwork and filing documents, but sometimes it's like, why? Like, be great first. Get in the game, write songs. Then let's, and it's good to be organized, but just, my initial advice, again, it's not to just, we'll come back to around why this is so important, but write great songs, be an artist, right? Then all this really matters. Because all this doesn't matter if you got a bunch of songs sitting on your shelf at home. That's great. Be a sole proprietor.
And can I just add to that real quick? One piece of advice that I've always given to songwriters since the beginning of my career is to be authentic. Really understand who you are as an artist and what you want to create and what you want to impart to the world. And you're like a channel, right? All the great artists that you know and look up to, they always sort of talk about themselves being this channel for the art. It comes through them. And I think being able to articulate that into your vision and communicate that to your team when you have a team, but before that, really expressing that through your music, because that is essentially your asset portfolio.
True.
That's your number one asset. Everything is built off of the music. You wouldn't be here if you weren't making music.
Right.
I think, and just to cap on that a little bit, the role of the CEO as a songwriter or an independent artist or just getting started as a creative, you are operating those two lanes as a team of one to begin with, where you are in the creative space, and eventually you need to have that hunger to devour and learn and organize and get set up with that business mind. But without that sort of key core emotional, well-articulated narrative of who you are and what you have to say and why is it a unique perspective, the rest is a shell. You need that sort of core product or that core sort of identity to then go out and inspire a team, because it all starts with you being the visionary, being the CEO.
Yep.
It starts with how are you cutting through to a team that can then rally and help provide insight on building a business and building an infrastructure. But without that first component, really thoughtful and ironed out piece, it's a little amorphous.
And it's interesting too, because you think, and even from that, everybody's saying the same thing. You have to have a product. We're talking about being a CEO. There's the product first, right? You don't build and have a factory and then figure out what the product is. You know the product. And then this becomes about amplifying, to Kent's point, what is already a great product, right? And at that point, let's talk team, because team is important, and this comes up a lot. At what point do I need to build out the team? What's next? And it's not always the same. It's not always I'm a songwriter and an artist, and so the next thing is I need a manager, or I need a lawyer, or I need an agent. It's not always that. I think it depends too, and we can speak to this. It's not always it's not the same next step for everybody. You know, if you have success, you know, song pops. You know, you might need an attorney before you need a manager, but if the phone is ringing off the hook and you need to be in different places, you might need a manager first. Or, you know, let's talk about that. Let's talk about, as we start to build out the team, what it looks like. Who's next on the team? Who do I need next? Do I need a manager? Do I need an attorney? Do I need an assistant? Really, before I need any of that, do I just need help? So let's talk about who's next and start building out the team. Who's next beyond me?
I mean, when I meet with artists or songwriters, and that is a question that comes up almost without a doubt first out of the gate. You know, I'm trying to get a manager, I'm trying to get an or whatever. And to Kent's, I think attorney is always a great place to start, because you may not have anything to manage, but the idea of a manager just seems like a obvious next step, I think, in a lot of people's heads, where it's like, well, I'll need a manager to help with X, Y, and Z. But if you don't have a good attorney, you have no idea what somebody's putting in front of you to sign or an agreement, and you might be down a path that you do not want to be down.
Now, watch this. Stay with that thought. Think about this. You're CEO. You run the company. A manager is somebody you're hiring to do day-to-day things and do the company. You own that business. This is your business, and let's talk about that. This is your business, and you should know what they know. If you're CEO, and not everything, but let's talk about that too, because this is your business that you're bringing someone else in to help you run. So it's important that you know and understand the business that you're bringing somebody in to run. I just wanted to put that out.
Absolutely. I think knowing and protecting yourself with a team member who can be that line of defense is always a great first, in my opinion, it's a great default, great first step, at least to dip your toe into having some of those conversations with attorneys, you know, wherever you may be.
And we, that team, and I remind clients all the time, we work for you. And even when I'm talking to the manager, and I may be speaking with, and there are different teams. I think a songwriter definitely has a different team than a recording artist. But just speaking about in the artist team, I will remind the manager, well, I'm speaking to the manager probably when the artist is busy. I'm speaking to the manager more than I'm probably speaking to the artist. The artist is out on the road, whatever. So the manager is sort of the agent, you know, that I'm speaking with. But I still remind everybody, the artist is the one that pays my bills. You know, I work for the artist. And I remind the artist, hey, I work for you. And even if we're not speaking that frequently, the door is always open, and if you need to call me, or if I need to call you, there's some things that I don't want to talk to the manager about.
Right.
And as far as putting together the team, and this maybe, it sounds a little self-serving, but I do think that the attorney is probably at the top of the list, because there's also, a manager works on a commission, right? They make 15 to 20% of what? Of something. They're lawyers in other states, they calculate their fees differently. Some attorneys work off of a commission as well. For the most part, like I don't work off a percentage. So I think that eliminates conflicts. So if I'm representing the artist or the songwriter, and if I'm looking at a deal, and maybe there's a lot of money on one deal and maybe not so much money in a different deal, you know, what's the better deal? And because I'm not working off of a commission, maybe I'm not going to be subconsciously leaning towards the deal that has more money because I'm getting 5% of that. Now, I say that attorneys have worked off of a percentage for years and years and years, so you know I don't know if it's as much of an issue, but there's still that sort of conflict. So as far as building the team, I feel like I can probably be more objective than other. You know, manager works on a commission, agent works on a commission. Even the business manager typically works on a commission. So I'll throw that out there as far as how you build the team, you know. And again, I don't, songwriters, most songwriters, you don't need a manager. So that another self-serving case of maybe why an attorney's someone, that you need to bring in early on.
But even for a songwriter, as a publisher, let's
Right.
assume that they start approaching, you want a line of defense to sort of navigate that discussion.
Yeah, and even on the PRO side, I would, a lot of times the PRO is the first sort of step, your first sort of introduction or interaction with someone in the industry. And most of the time, for a songwriter anyway, an offer will come in before anything else, right? So whether it's a sync, someone finds your song and they want to sync it, and having, oftentimes the first person they really need is an attorney. They would always come to me and ask me, does this look right? I'm not a lawyer. I can tell you if it looks funny or if things look standard or normal, but you should really have a lawyer. So most of the time, a lawyer is the first. The other thing I just want to add is really understanding the role of each person on your team. Like when you apply for a job, there's always a job description. You just don't apply blindly for a job, not knowing exactly what that entails, right? Same thing, and it might be different for everybody, for every artist or for every songwriter, to Kent's point. So it really is up to you to decide what role that is, what they're going to play, what you need them to do, and really define it specifically, and to oversee that position, all of those positions, whatever they are.
And that's interesting too, because at the point where maybe you even have that one person, let's say it's you and an attorney, at that point, strategy, for a sustainable career. Let's talk about sustainability and what that looks like as a songwriter. And let's not just talk songwriter, and it's come up a lot. It's hard to say songwriter because we naturally want to say artist or creator. But generally speaking, and talking about a sustainable career, let's talk about strategies for a creator and sustainability. What does it look like? Publisher came up. How do we see publishing deals now? And Nashville does it different than, let's say, LA, New York. The role of a publisher is completely different. Genre to genre, it's completely different. But in talking sustainability too, let's talk about what that looks like. If you're a songwriter, let's say you're starting to have success. Again, we're not talking entry level. If you're starting to have success, right, you have cuts, so you're releasing music and you're getting traction. Let's talk about a sustainable career as a songwriter now. Here's what you got to know. I'm doing a little extra talking because at first I was going to be on the panel and then now I'm moderating. So here's this. And I'm also a songwriter and I'm really interested to hear what they would have to say. So I just wanted to put that out there. Here's something I told somebody last week. Being a songwriter, a successful songwriter or publisher looks really something like this. Let's look at a calendar. January. Where's your New Year's song? Comes February. Depending who you are. You got Black History songs. You have Valentine's Day songs. March, April is springtime. It's Easter. It's prom season. It's wedding season. Where are your wedding songs? Where's your birthday song? You have any patriotic songs when July comes around? Where are your summer songs? Here comes Thanksgiving. Where are your grateful songs? Now here comes Christmas. Now, if you look at it like that and then everything else is in between, that catalog is earning. So let's talk about sustainability. I just want to put that out there. In my mind, that's part of what sustainability looks like in building out the career of a songwriter, right, or a creative. So let's talk about sustainability, y'all.
I'll kind of parallel that, because you're talking about like creatively, from more of a business or legal perspective, strategy for me is ownership. When we're going into a deal, and it's hard. I mean, the level of the artist, it's hard to maintain ownership early on in an artist's career without much leverage if you're going into a publishing deal.
Right.
There's 100% publishing deals, there's co-pub deals, right. But even for a songwriter early on, I'm thinking about ownership, reversions, so that at some point in time you get all or some of your publishing back. So that keeps so that you will not only own and control your catalog. And so when I think about sustainability and strategy, I'm thinking down the road. It may be 5 years, maybe 10 years, and maybe 20 years. And also, I'm thinking about a contractual reversion. There's also a statutory reversion. So you get, when you assign your music, your songs, to a publisher, by statute, you actually get your songs back. It's another conversation, but it basically, in 35 years from the date of the transfer, you can terminate that transfer and get your music back. 35 years is a long time. I prefer a contractual reversion. So either you get your administration rights back. If it's a co-publishing deal, you own half and a publisher owns half, and you can get the right to control your half back. Now you're back in the game, right? There's controls under a publishing deal where publishers can't just, run around with your music.
Right.
But then there's a reversion of ownership. That may be 10 years, 12 years, 15, 18, 20 years, anything better than 35 years to get your music back, where you are now the full publisher, owner of your music. That to me is also sustainability where, especially if that catalog is earning, now, you're back to controlling your product, and you're really, back running your business.
I think, absolutely could not agree with any of that more. And to touch back on the creative strategy that Shannon kind of touched on, talking about sustainability, talking about longevity with ownership, and talking about strategy. I think proximity in place and goal setting is key to defining a strategy for sustainability. So what I mean by that is, in Nashville in particular, the sort of the music row of it all that was built on the backs of songwriters developed into a very clear-cut strategy on country radio and writing hits and working with certain publishers that have relationships with certain A&Rs. And if you're a songwriter and you can kind of understand that, and that's the goal, and that's the objective, and working with a publisher that is going to run through the brick wall for you, because I do think that's the role of the publisher really in this setting, is who is going to be your biggest advocate in the room to get cuts and get artists who are going to fall in love with your voice and what it is that you're doing at the time. I think framing it in that way and applying that creatively is where we've seen artists or songwriters in this town just have immense success. Those who write together and can collaborate and work within that system. It's sky's the limit. I think talking about seasonality and talking about sync is a whole different game of sustainability and longevity. And you can have both simultaneously, but I think understanding it and defining it, breaking it down in that way versus throwing a lot against a wall to see what sticks, I do think gives you the ability and the tool to plot that course and to walk into a room with a publisher and explain this and talk to them about your goals. That way they're on the same page. Again, going back to the CEO, sort of understanding who you are and what your goal is so that your team can facilitate it for you is the key.
And for me, I think something super important is talking about, from a creative standpoint, is versatility. Really being able to, if you want to be in all the rooms, we're like really heading into this genreless ecosystem in music, just because of the way music is consumed. It's not just terrestrial radio anymore, it's streaming, and this is all over the world, and anyone from anywhere in the world can listen to your music, and everybody's sharing, and the genres are melding, right? So if you can write a country song, and you can write a pop song, and you can write a jazz song, you're gonna have an insane, diverse catalog, and you're gonna be able to exploit that catalog, and that's publishing, right? So the importance of publishing and understanding your rights and the copyright, the rights that you own, is part of what's going to drive your success. Well, a lot of what's going to drive your success, because that's the money you make in your sleep. That's sustainability to the max, right? Like that's the ultimate goal. Is you're just sleeping in your bed and the money's rolling in, and then you get a check in the mail, right, or in your bank account. So I think versatility and really understanding your rights and how to exploit those rights is super important.
Yeah. Truly. And it's interesting. We talked about it actually before the panel. A lot of people don't realize you are your publisher at the beginning until you assign those rights to someone else, right? Until you enter a deal. But it's hard to know. It's hard to know what the role is. It's hard to know if you're doing it right. It's hard to know if you're managing your interests properly. And let's talk about that. Like, how does one know? I know for me, a song happens and it gets on the radio, money comes, but you don't necessarily know until you know. Where do we go? What are the resources? Where are the places that we go and look to learn? Without a 4-year music business degree from a university, where do we go? There's YouTube now, but how do we learn? I don't know if that makes any sense, but how do we learn? Does it have to be by mistake?
That's what we're trying to avoid by having these conversations.
Right. And just
you come to this room and no.
Learning in terms of like how are you defining success? Are you
Well, no. In terms of being a CEO, running a publishing company. Because you are your own publisher, but a lot of times people don't realize that they are the publisher. What is it? Let's talk about that. What it means to be a publisher, and that's changing. To your point, Nashville does it probably better than anybody. Like, no one champions the writer like Nashville and like publishing companies do in Nashville. Let's talk about that. Let's back up. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the role of a publisher, and especially the modern publisher, because I feel like the role of publishing companies is definitely evolving. And we're talking about managers. And for a songwriter, the publisher does act as a manager, especially day to day. They manage calendars, manage catalogs. But then, Kent, to your point, you get to a point where you may come to an end of a deal, and now you're stuck. And that's what I was trying to get to. No one educates you in a publishing deal. I've done this for you, and so now you're out of it. What do I do with this? I don't necessarily know, so how do I become educated? But that's a different thing. But let's talk about the role of a publisher. How to know if a publisher's really working with and for you, and where we see that role. How is that role evolving?
Before we dive into that, to take a step back and answer the question you just asked, I think one of the most important institutions on behalf of a songwriter is the PRO. And I think that is where you can find a lot of resources to educate yourself and have a sounding board with somebody who does know this space and can talk through what should the role be, you know, and who are the people that we need to speak to. So if you, as a songwriter, I think an actionable step, if you're not already affiliated with a PRO, that should be one of the first steps you look into and do a little digging on.
Shameless plug really quickly for BMI, and to that point, to that point,
we love BMI.
A lot of people don't realize, like, we collect the money, we distribute, we give the money, we distribute to publishers. They're not a collection mechanism within themselves. We collect the money. So that's a whole other thing, and distribute to songwriters, publishers, composers.
Right. But I think, that is a great resource for education and understanding.
What does a publisher do?
You can keep it real, Ken.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's that question is asked every day from new writers to well-established songwriters that are in a publishing deal. I get, I don't know how many calls of going, I don't know what my publisher is doing. Because
they're supposed to be your business partner, right, as CEO.
Right. And so I think, the answer depends. I think the publisher, I'm sure, for writers that don't have a publishing deal, for new writers, it's very difficult to get in the room. To co-write, to build that community, to go to school. By being in the room and writing songs, that's going to school. It's very hard. So I think a publisher is great at that. As far as exploiting your songs, that's becoming harder and harder and harder because artists and labels have become much more self-contained. As opposed to historically where it was like, here's a song, here's a song, here's a song. Now the artist is much more involved, and the artist has their team of songwriters that share that vision So in terms of the publisher pitching songs and getting songs cut, that's kind of gone away. So it's back to getting in the room, getting you writing with other writers, and then it's a little bit of a, sometimes backdoor success where it's like, oh, the other writer has a relationship with an artist, and oh, that artist now heard the song, and then once you've got your first cut, second cut, now you're in business. So I think that's where a publisher can come in handy, and then also it's a bank, and it's a give and get. I think a realistic factor is money. I don't want that to take away from the creative process, but for a lot of artists, you need financial support. You need creative support, but you need financial support. It's a reality.
So let's dig into that a little deeper. So let me explain this to you. Let's use $50,000 as a number, right? If you're an established songwriter, if we can see your earnings, we can pretty much project what you're going to do for the next 8 quarters. We can tell how you're going to recoup that. If you're a brand new songwriter with no earnings and no history, there's nothing for us to advance against, right? That's where a publisher comes in, because a publisher is someone that'll see your potential and advance you that $50,000. But then in the signing of that agreement, there's a letter of direction that tells us now, when you do start to earn, send your money to them until you recoup that. So just to explain what he's saying about them being the bank, we can be the bank as a PRO. A lot of people don't know that. We advance. We can advance directly to you once we know and once there's a history of earnings. To Kent's point, if you're brand new, somebody else, then that's going to be the publishers looking at your potential, and they're the ones taking a chance on you. A lot of times that's when people get mad, because you blow up, you do well, and now you're stuck in this deal that you wish you hadn't done, but you needed the money in the beginning. You needed them to be the bank. So now you got a problem with this terrible interest rate that they may offer. Sorry, any publishers in the room, but I don't know if you want to add. I just want to add on to what Kent was saying in terms of publishers potentially being a bank.
Yeah, that's it. But it's what you said. It's a give and a get. You get the money, but you have to give up some rights, and maybe that's 50% of your publishing, 50% ownership. Maybe it's 100% ownership, but that may be okay to take that step back by giving up rights to ultimately take 2 steps forward, right? Getting in the game, getting in the room. Having $50,000 in your bank account is better than $50,000 being in someone else's bank account. But then how quickly you forget, the artist, the writer forgets, and they have some success, and they're I don't like saying stuck in a deal, because there's always, you can renegotiate, and publishing deals aren't necessarily very long-term deals. So maybe it's potentially a 3-year deal or a 4-year deal. So for songwriters, that's a very small period of time in your career. But to, get going, it may be worth it, and then when those 3 years are over, now you're on the market. Now you can have more options and make different types of decisions to have a sustainable, long-term career.
And really quick, I'm coming to Jay, but only because you're right here. One thing that he said is really important, because you'll have that run, and while you're at the publishing company, you should be documenting these things for yourselves too, developing these relationships for yourselves, because when this is over, you want to be able to go directly to some of these teams. Hey, remember me? I wrote this here and did this, and I was a part of this. So you can get out here and work it for yourself. So I just want to put that out there. And to his other point about writing with artists, that's really what it is now. More than anything, artists, especially big artists, have their own publishing companies. Right, they're starting their own publishing companies, and what they're doing is bringing in and creating their own teams of people to write for them. It helps to write with somebody that's writing with or writing for someone else. So that's another backdoor to Kent's point. I'm sorry, Jamie.
No, you're good. And also, every publisher is different.
Yeah.
Every publishing deal is different. There aren't any 2 deals alike, really, in this day and age. And I think, back to the beginning, have a good lawyer, always, who's going to have your back. But also, there's so many options now for creatives, more than there ever was in the history of our business, I think. And so really speaking to everybody you know, and as the business is relationship based, it always has been. So ask if you're speaking to a publisher, ask other writers or artists that are signed to that publishing company what their experience is. They're going to do everything they can to sign you. They want to cast the wide net and catch all the fish. But after they sign you and the deal's done, do you have someone there that's really going to keep, they're going to have your back, they're going to put your music out there, they're going to do all the things they promised. These are things that you just have to think about, talk to everybody, also know that everything's negotiable, right? There's no standard, there's no industry standard. If people throw that around, if they try to tell you that's a standard agreement, then that's a problem.
Sure.
I like thinking about the role of a publisher in a simple form. I think they are your team member to help, especially on behalf of a songwriter, facilitate opportunity, whether that's for a co-write or with an artist who's going to cut a song, or even an opportunity to release your own music into the world. I mean, there's many songwriters that we work with who have cuts with other artists that are also releasing recorded work. And so I think a publisher, it is hard to define because they can operate so many different roles, but ultimately they are your champion and they're there to facilitate opportunity, and you want somebody who's going to be in your corner because it's that passion for the song that I think yields the best result, really. That's ultimately, I think, where we see the most success is the publisher or the song that cuts through. It's because that emotional core and that vision is felt, it's seen there.
It's teamwork.
Yeah, totally. And also just thinking, bringing you or making you aware of opportunity. Somebody says, hey, here's an opportunity, this film possibly, or I have a relationship here and they're looking for this TV show, gives you an opportunity to reverse engineer that and say, okay, I either have something like that, or thank you for the awareness, and now I can create something for that, and whether I get it or not, it's now in the catalog, so next time there's a similar ask, somebody's looking for a similar thing, at least I have something. So they've created an awareness with you of what might be a need in the catalog. Documentation, let's talk a little bit about that, man. Again, being the CEO, it's interesting being a songwriter because you're in the factory, right? And in my mind, I see this person that's really in a factory, a one-person show, making the product, but then you have to turn around and switch your brain and sit down and do the accounting. It's the one thing we don't want to do, and I think that's why we don't know. I think that's why a lot of times as creators we'll find ourselves outside of that, or, I was in a deal and I really didn't learn anything. I'm a better songwriter, but I'm not a better business person. I didn't learn anything in that because it was all done for me. And it's very much the give a man a fish, teach a man to fish. And it can be helpful, but a publishing deal can also be debilitating in that way, crippling in that way. How important is it to learn the administrative part of this, or to document yourself, keep up with these things yourself, mirror what someone may be doing, but that education and educating yourself, understanding the game, really understanding the business of songwriting or of being a creator. How important is it to be an administrator yourself? As much as you may hate it, how important is that?
It's
everything.
Everything.
Right.
It's crucial.
Yeah, it's your money.
Yeah.
And to understand the different sources as well as a songwriter, as a publisher, knowing the difference between, I'll say generically mechanical income, which record sales or streaming, that's still considered mechanical income, public performance income, and sync income. Those are the three main sources of income, and knowing the difference between sync and public performance. Sometimes they're tied together. You have a song on a television show, you're going to get sync income and you're going to get public performance income. To know how I don't go too deep, but okay, let's talk about public performance income. Knowing, okay, there's a writer's share of income and a publisher, actually, all three sources. There is a writer's share of income and a publisher's share of income. Those are income terms. If you're a publisher, or there are two publishers, I do a deal with Sony, I'm a publisher, Sony's a publisher. We share in the publisher's share of income, roughly 50%, 50 cents on the dollar. So knowing, so that when you see a statement from BMI, you're going to get two statements. Actually, you're going to get a statement for your writer's share of income and a statement for your publisher's share of income. So knowing rights on a sync side, all right, usually for sync, there's a master use license for the use of the recording, and then there's a synchronization license for use of the composition. Knowing how that money works, a lot of times a request, a license will have it all in. It's $10,000 for what we sometimes say both sides, the recording side and the publishing side. So understanding the rights, understanding what flows from those rights, and then so that you can look at that accounting statement, whether it comes from Paramount Pictures or BMI or RCA Records, and know, okay, the 2 cents here actually came from, and that's right, because this comes up too, where writers, artists, they see these statements and they're like, why is it only 2 cents? Well, you need to understand, because the publisher takes this much. There were 3 writers on the song, so that's split up, and now once that flows down, that's where the 2 cents comes from. And I think once you have that basic understanding, then, and there's money coming in, get a business manager.
Yes,
Yeah.
Because it's really good to understand the rights and the flow of income, but then let someone that has the expertise really dive into those statements and make sure that the money is correct. And I also think it helps to, you don't want to take up, like, you want to learn, but then at some point I don't think you want to take up that much of your brain space dealing and worrying about accountings. Be creative and build that team. People that are working for you. You have an expert that knows royalty statements and the lawyer and all that. So it's kind of like this full circle. Be your CEO and then outsource.
Yeah.
Delegate as a CEO would.
For sure.
Yeah, but having even that basic understanding, so that when you're speaking with a business manager, you're speaking a similar language, is everything. I think removing intimidation or confusion around the subject it's up to you to educate yourself to get to that point.
And that, I'll say that this is probably, I do so many panels and a lot of workshops, and it's alarming how little anybody knows about rights and the difference between performance and mechanical and all of those things. And it's confusing. It was actually built to be confusing. We're being fully transparent here, right? Like, it was not an artist-friendly business from the get-go. So you do have to empower yourself, and I'm gonna give a shameless MLC plug, because we have a wealth of resources on our website. And I think Kayla might even have some of these. We have this, it's a digital music landscape, so it's pertaining specifically to how digital performances and those royalties flow on the master side and on the performance side and on the sound recording side. But it sort of helps to give you a visual of, like, okay, this is the performance right, and this is how the money flows to which organizations and to the publisher and to the writer. And it's helpful. It's still a little bit, your eyes might get kind of like shifty at first, but just sit and stare at it for a while, and then watch a webinar or something. Look on MLC website. There's a ton of resources, and the PROs always have great resources too. But you really have to just educate yourself, because where are you going to find this information? There's not one centralized place to get all of this info. So that's the part that's horrible. But we're working on it.
I think the beauty of where we're at now, though, is that all this information is available.
Yeah.
You can be an independent songwriter, artist, and have all of this at your fingertips. It is all there to learn as much as you want to take in. And that's there's no better time than now to be an independent creator and be the CEO of your own business, because those walls are down. You can learn it. You can find it. You can research publishers. You can see on a PRO database, like who's published by who and what are they working on. And it's all there.
I will say too, have your own spreadsheet too, just for your own recollection of what you're writing so many songs, you're moving so fast, you're gonna remember or forget a year from now. Now, who did I write that with? What did we agree to? So just keeping up with that for yourself, just for your own understanding of what the situation was, the agreement was, just to make notes. Every song, again, is tedious, but this is the CEO part. We know what the creative part is. Do yourself a favor, document these things. You know, Kent, you said something that made me think to ask you this, and all of you. You know, Kent won't say it, but he's one of the more successful entertainment attorneys in town. Known Kent a long time, I have a lot of respect for Kent. But Kent, if you were, knowing what you know, and then everyone, but if you were a songwriter, if you were a creative, you being a CEO, what would your company look like? What would your career look like? What would your business, that's what I'm saying, how would you build your business out, knowing what you know, if you were creative? You know, having learned from the mistakes of so many, what would the Kent Marcus songwriting business look like?
No pressure.
Yeah, that was a good question. Starting very kind of like elementary, I think we use like organization. It's a difficult question because I'm thinking not creatively, but I think it's important that
And that's okay.
that it needs to be. I mean, I'd love to tell you what my creative vision and what my company would look like, but as the CEO, it's just it's organization, it's control, not control like sociopathic control, but you know, control of your business, and just having creative success so that the control and the ownership plays out so that when I'm ready to check out, I can sell my catalog and I can go live on a beach.
Nice. Okay. That's great. That's great. That's great.
But it comes from success, because I don't think you can, like, it comes from creative success, which none of us can predict. It's easy to say, let's do all these things and organize, and so that we can own our catalog.
But if it's not worth anything.
Exactly.
Right.
So that's something that none of us can predict, the creative success and the vision and the art that you guys are creating, and you know, success. I mean, I wish I had a crystal ball, right? I mean, who knows? You know, I'm sure that, you know, there's so many incredible songs that have come out of this room that have maybe never seen the light of day, and it's just like, and also there's a bunch of crappy songs that have seen the light of day, and you're like, you know, how is that person making all the money? So, I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it's all good, but no, everybody's perspective should be different. What would your business look like?
I mean, putting myself in the position of a songwriter, this goes back to the beginning of this discussion, but I mean, just ferocious writing and focusing on that creative. I think it really does start there. Because again, you can't predict success, but the more you're sort of pouring yourself into that craft and admiring others' work and finding out what the through line is that maybe you can get in the room with somebody that you admire. I mean, we work with, again, so many young artists in particular, but a lot of the artists that we work with are also the songwriters for their work, and being vulnerable and putting yourself in a position to collaborate creatively with others, I think you see so much mileage out of that practice, and I think it does start there. And then once you start to see some sort of creative tread, you know, catch some traction, it would devour as much information as I can. It would go to the MLC and go to BMI and sort of understand the business side a little bit better. Work with a great attorney like Kent, and you know, and prepare yourself, because I think ultimately, you know, you want to be in the best position you can be to field a lot of the business questions that are going to come your way. So that's educate yourself and then surround yourself with people that you trust and who are passionate about what you're doing. I think that's it.
Great. That's great.
I mean, if I had the chops and I had a hit song and it was just one hit, I just need one hit song, really. And you can make that hit song go forever. But my business would look like Rihanna's. You know, like what I mean by that is diversification. Spread your bets.
That's good.
Spread your bets. Like,
That's good, yeah.
like there's not a single global superstar who's just making income solely off of their music. They reach a certain level and then you see what they do. They start a clothing brand, they have a liquor brand, they have cosmetics, you know, and then the music is just like their passion. They can just do that,
Yeah.
you know. So I think that's what I would do. The other thing, you know, going back to the authenticity and really knowing, you know, the value of what you create and that you have all the power and the leverage, you know, and use it, exploit it to the best of your ability.
It's all great. One thing, and then I'll open it up to you guys for a minute. We have a few minutes, but, you know, I'm glad that we're at a point in our society where we're a lot more open and transparent about mental health. And we see it a lot. You know, I tell folks disappointment only exists where there's expectation. You know, we expect something, and when it doesn't happen, we're disappointed, and that affects us. So it's important to manage expectation. I saw something about a week ago, and somebody was talking, you know, about rappers. Like, what advice do you have for rappers, you know, starting out? And the guy just simply said, get a job. You know, get a job, because what happens, you start to have success, and, you know, and we see it a lot. Something will happen or nothing will happen, and it affects us deeply. You know, and Rob's point, you know, that the craft at some point becomes the career, but you're just passionate about it, you know. But at what point do we start to expect things from this thing that we're passionate about and it doesn't give back? But just the importance of protecting our mental health too. If anybody has anything, if you don't, it's okay, but just anybody has anything to contribute about that and how to stay healthy and how to stay balanced while chasing this dream, if you will, pursuing this passion.
I mean, unfortunately, we've seen the downside of people who don't take care of themselves. I think artists, songwriters, creatives who are able to find that balance, and again, just from the, you know, my vantage point, has been really relying on the team to make sure that they're checking in with themselves and that they have the space that they need, you know, and it's crucial. And if you have somebody who is not to, and I don't think it's out of malice, but it's just sort of driven, and we're gonna go, and they're not really paying attention to the other side of this, of the business, then, or your mental health, it's a slippery slope, and you want to keep going. When opportunity and success starts to come your way, it's hard to say no, or it's hard to kind of give yourself that space. But that's where I think, again, back to the team and being the CEO and surrounding yourself with people who are going to look out for all aspects of who you are and your well-being and your career. I think that is a recipe for success.
It's brutal. I mean, it's brutal. As artists, I mean, I think artists are, you know, beautiful freaks in that you have this vision and this passion, and there's no plan B, right? There's no plan B, but you're thrown in this brutal world that's become super competitive. And I mean, I admire you and I respect you, and it's I mean, we see it more than we'd like to see it, of the collision of these worlds, trying to maintain your business and being involved in your business, yet being creative, yet being physically healthy to be out on the road for you're a touring artist. All these things collide, and it's no wonder it's hard. And you know, you in some form or fashion, you know, you have these moments where there's a breakdown, and you have to have that team of people around you. And I've had this conversation recently with a very successful artist that I represent, where I didn't necessarily offer this advice, but we were talking about, like, it's okay to say no. You know, you don't have to do the liquor deal and the fashion deal and then the meet and greet because you did this, you know, this liquor company is sponsoring your tour and they want your time and the label wants your time and the publisher wants your time, you know, and to say no. And that's okay. And I mean, it's kind of a privilege if you're in a position to say no. Sometimes you have to say yes, yes, yes. Yeah, it's just, I admire people that do it because it's really, really hard. And so pace yourself. And, you know, no plan B. You know, you got to take rejection and be hardened by it, but don't be too hardened by it because you want to be artistic. It's just, it's all fucked up. It's all
Thank you, Kit.
And also define your own success, right? Like everyone's definition of success is different, and you don't have to compare yourself to this one or that one. And remember why you're doing it in the first place. I think what happens is a lot of artists, when they become successful in the traditional sense, meaning fame and you know, all of the stuff that comes along with it, they tend to start working for other people. Making other people happy is something that becomes more of the priority, like, oh, I have to do all of these things because everybody's relying on me to get their checks. But where would they be without you? So you have to really remember that it's also your responsibility to take care of yourself so you don't burn out and you feel like, oh, yeah, I remember I'm doing this because I love to make music.
Yeah.
But don't become so successful and so powerful that you start throwing these freak parties.
Right.
And, you know, like, come on.
And buying islands.
I mean, you know,
Right.
just kind of focus or that energy somewhere else.
Grounding.
Yeah, this is true.
Grounding.
This is true.
I want to say, too, I know we're talking about, like, okay, it can build and build and build, and at a certain point, you're saying yes to a lot, and that's where, you know, the sort of stress of it all can kind of come in and be crippling, and that is true, but I also want to say the pitfalls of mental health and not checking in with yourself, it doesn't care about success. This happens at every level, and there are resources for those who are at any level of this industry, artists, professional, through Music Cares, you can get help. Help is available, and I just want to make sure for anybody who isn't aware of that, that is a great resource and a great nonprofit. You should absolutely take advantage
Great
of.
resource. Porter's Call is another one for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We have a few moments. Actually, we're right at it, but if anybody had a question for our panelists, we just want to open up the room. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I am enjoying a retirement career working with young artists. I do management stuff and business stuff. I'm here with Caleb Malooly from the Gas and Gypsies right now. We're learning. One of the very first things when I got involved in doing stuff like this was to seek out lawyers, so I understood the minutia of all the how to get paid. I would suggest that to any young songwriter or singer or anybody seeking out a lawyer. There's a lot to learn, and just understanding that structure is a huge advantage right out of the gate. My question is, if that's what you're doing and you're investing sometimes hundreds of dollars an hour to be able to just communicate with people in this business, how do you know you got the right guy?
That's a good question.
How does the artist know they have the right lawyer, or how does the lawyer know?
No, how does the artist know that they're talking to the right
I mean, I meet several lawyers, you know? I mean, go meet different people. Recommendations are good. Recommendations from people that you know and respect, start there. And then, you know, meet a whole bunch, and I think you'll figure it out, just whether it's reading in between the lines or just a connection. And it doesn't have to be a personal connection. You could just be like, you know, man, that guy has the worst bedside manner, but he knows what he's talking about. Hopefully it's both, you know, someone that I think can help explain and that, you know, knows what they're talking about. Because that kind of, that communication is key. So being able to, I think, finding the right person that can communicate well, just in the sense of communication, but communicating what, and that they know what they're talking about. I think you know, even like getting a second opinion from a doctor. I think it's important to meet a couple different lawyers, and I think then you'll know. I think there's, you know, a few that stand above the.
Yeah. And then, if I may, I would say too, see who else they're working with. You know, are they working with people that are having success and doing well? You know, and I would say that across the board, are people working with people that you would either want to work with, or you like the way their careers are going, the trajectory of their careers going up, and so you look at that team and say, okay, they must be doing something right over there. So I would say look at that, kind of pull the curtain back to see who people are working with, whose careers, and even in genres, and it can be genre specific too, but who's having success in a particular area, because deal styles, right?
Yeah, I think
Styles
yeah.
of deals are different, genre to genre. So I would say that too, man. Just really look at, you know, who's working for who.
Relationships are important.
Yeah.
So I think genre specific, you know, if you are a country artist, working with a rap hip hop artist may not, a lawyer, you know,
Right.
may not be the right fit, because again, you want, and the relationship's not for like, you know, oh, go get me a deal, but the relationships of when you're working on a deal. I can tell you that lawyers working with other lawyers, it means a lot. You want to have good relationships with other lawyers, and also when things go bad, relationships are important, to be able to make a phone call. And you know, if I know the lawyers at this label in this, maybe this genre, it's helpful. So I think that it's that genre specific thing, and genres are blurring, but there's still, you know, the business and people at labels, people at publishing companies. There's definitely a sandbox theory, so that's important to think about.
We're right at our time. We got time for one more. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
I don't know, everyone always says the Don
Passman?
Passman
Yeah.
book, but I think that's, I think.
I mean, Passman, I feel like is the obvious. In terms of publishing, there's a book written by Wixon that is a fantastic. Oh God, now I'm blanking on it. Just look up Wixon Publishing. He wrote the book. It's a really great deep dive.
And the Don Passman book, it's the one, you know, it should be updated more, but, so it's a little, there are chapters that are a bit archaic, but.
And Passman covers the entire spectrum.
Yes.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
going to be, that's, you know, that's like the industry sort of
A 101 high
101,
level.
yeah.
Yeah. You definitely want the most updated one.
Most-
Yeah, and even, you know, because to Jamie's point earlier, you know, about the MLC and their resources, right? You have a lot of resources. So if the book mentions the MLC, don't look at them as the source. Don't look at the book as the source, then go to the MLC, right? And then go, or then come to BMI, then go and see what these different institutions, if you will, what they have to say about themselves. Because by the time that ink was dry on that book, something may have been updated, the policy has changed, it's old information in these books. So you want to go directly, come directly to these websites and get the information directly from these folks. So more than a book, I would say just go directly to the sources. All right, guys, listen, thank you. Hopefully today you got some information that will help you be a greater CEO of your own songwriting or artistic career or business. So thank you for being here, and enjoy AmeriCanaFest.
And give it up for our moderator.
Yeah, thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.